Welcome to today's Art Chat. I'm Laura Stiefelmore, and today I'm sitting down with Susan Benjamin, who is a botanical artist and the president of the Florida Society of Botanical Artists, which is a chapter of the American Society of Botanical Artists. Botanical art combines the study of science and art, and while Susan works primarily in watercolor, many other mediums are used as well. Susan was nominated for this Art Chat by an anonymous submission on our website, and she was totally game when I contacted her. So Susan, I want to thank you for joining me today and taking us up on this invitation.
Well, thank you for asking me to join.
We're really excited to have you. So before we go any further, I'd like to just get your impressions of this work of art that I've selected for you today.
Well, it looks like it was done by one of the Flemish painters, and they were primarily known for their highly realistic rendering of plants, flowers, in particular, more still lives, but this certainly, it does have the two images in front, very poetic images with looks like a sea scene behind them, but yet what is very prominent in the painting are the larger floral bouquet on the right side and then the basket of flowers below. Mm-hmm. They are in highly detailed, which is very typical of the Flemish artists.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you're picking up on the botanical detail, which I thought you might. And you're absolutely right. This is done by some Flemish artists. There's actually two artists working here, Peter Paul Rubens and Osias Beert. And it's a collaboration between the two of them. And it's the story of Pausias and Glycera. Pausias is the artist there, and his lover, Glycera, was a flower weaver. She wove wreaths of flowers. And so it's the sort of rivalry between art and nature, right? What is more beautiful, the flowers themselves or the paintings of flowers? So I thought it would be a good topic to discuss with you today. But I'm curious to hear a little bit more about your process as a botanical painter. We know right now during this time of coronavirus, people are definitely looking for ways to keep their mind off of worry, keep their mind off the news. So I imagine botanical painting is sort of meditative in that you have to be immensely focused on the specimen that you're painting or that you're reproducing. And I assume that this sort of intense concentration is very freeing, in that it keeps your mind from wandering into worry. Is that true for you, or am I totally off the mark here?
No, absolutely, absolutely, you are correct. Botanical painting and probably any creative endeavor, whether you're painting or writing or even playing an instrument and practicing, it's a solitary endeavor. Mm-hmm. And because we are find ourselves confined to our homes, I can now spend hours working on a piece, and I find the time just flies by. I am very concentrated on what I'm doing. I'm not worried about what is happening outside of my little world, and I find it very, very soothing and very comfortable to be able to just get involved in my painting.
That sounds like a nice escape. I think we're going to have a lot of people wanting to try their hand at this. So like I mentioned, you lead the Florida Society of Botanical Artists, and it's been tradition for that group to come to the Ringling Museum and paint on the grounds there. But as you mentioned, now everybody is quarantining, everybody's staying inside. So now that your group can no longer be in these community spaces like the Ringling Gardens, how are you staying inspired? And what subjects are you painting? Do you always paint from life, or do you paint from?
I always, for myself, I always paint from life. Okay. If I'm fortunate enough, I can bring my specimen into my home with me, so I have it in front of me. Mm-hmm. And then I take many, many photographs of all parts of the plant, different views of the plant, how a leaf would attach to a stem. And if I have to do it out in field studies, I take a lot of notes. But again, it's my photographs that I tend to rely on quite heavily. Mm-hmm. In botanical painting, you combined, as you mentioned, you combine science and art. So you want to create a pleasing composition, an interesting composition, but you have to be true to your specimen. So you want to show how that leaf, the margins of the leaf, what the edges look like, what the stems look like, how that leaf attaches to the stem, and the flower also. It should tell a story of the plant. So when someone sees an image, they should easily recognize it. And if you go to an exhibit of botanical art, it's not uncommon to see people with magnifying glasses, lenses,
Oh, wow.
because you want to get up as close as you can. It's very, very detailed work.
It sounds very interesting and a very laborious process.
Well, it can be, but it's something I enjoy doing, and our members enjoy doing also.
Right.
And although we are not able to meet anymore, we do online video, which we did this morning actually, which our members have enjoyed quite a bit. So
what does that look like when you all get together via video? Are you all painting at the same time, or just?
No, we're just, it's a group discussion. This morning we had 17 members, and we had the presenter is the meeting chairperson. And if we're working on something, we can share our work through screen sharing or video or chatting. We can comment on each other's works. If someone is having a problem with composition or with perhaps their colors are not correct, then we can give them some pointers, which is very helpful.
I love that idea that this is a group that's all about collaboration, because you mentioned in the beginning, we were talking about the process and how it's a very solitary endeavor, but at the same time, you have this community of artists that you're collaborating with. And I love that idea of collaboration in conjunction with this painting here too. As I mentioned, it was done both by Rubens and Beert. Rubens did the two human figures, and then Beert was, he specialized in still life painting, and he did the flowers around the sides that you mentioned. So I think it's this really nice collaboration. Each are playing to their strengths, and even though they're working in what is ostensibly a solitary pursuit, the act of painting, they're working together to create something even more meaningful.
Yes, that's true. And it's interesting that you can really, at least I can certainly tell that there's one style of painting in the figures, and then there's another style in the plants and flowers that are there, but yet they work very well together.
Yeah, they really do.
It makes a very nice composition.
They do, yeah. So speaking of making nice compositions, if there are people out there who want to try their hand at botanical painting, we know a lot of people are really investing in their gardens right now, landscaping or tending to their indoor plants. So hopefully they have a lot of subject matter to choose from. But what advice do you have for someone wanting to try their hand at botanical painting? Where do you start? What is the easiest subject to paint in the very beginning?
Well, that's hard to say. I would start simple, start with something small, maybe just a simple leaf. And sometimes the simplest subject can be rendered beautifully. Perhaps a twig, or a dried leaf, or a seed pod. And just look and just study it, just see how all the different parts of it. They can be very, very interesting.
And you work, I know, primarily in watercolor. What are some of the other media that?
Well, it's actually more and more mediums are being accepted. I work a lot in graphite, but oils is acceptable medium, acrylics, scratch point, which is a different technique that gives a very gray tone. Pen and ink is a very traditional medium for botanical art. So, and in some of our international shows, a ballpoint pen rendering has been accepted. Micron pens have been accepted. So as more tools are available, they can also be used to create botanical art. It's not so much the tools they use, it's how the specimen is rendered.
Is rendered, yeah. And I think I mentioned this is oil on canvas, but
yes,
good to know that even if someone's at home and they've just got a ballpoint pen and an old twig, that maybe they can try it out. I like
yes, or colored pencils are also a very accepted medium also.
Wonderful. Well, Susan, I wanted to just give the last word to you. Is there anything else you'd want to share with people listening to this art chat?
Some of the best painters that I know have not had any formal education. A lot of them, it's just simply taking a subject you want to create, and just get pencil and paper and just start.
Wonderful. Well, good advice, and hopefully we've inspired some budding botanical artists, no pun intended. So thank you so much for joining me today and spending a little time with this painting, and I hope you stay safe and stay inspired.
Well, thank you, and you also.